Alrighty. So firstly, I want to say that this is going to be obviously a very different video from what I usually do. This is going to be an intermediate level guide to running RPD East as a survivor in Dead by Daylight. So intermediate means I'm assuming you know stuff like basic game mechanics and broad map layout. I'm making this video for two reasons. Firstly, because I think an intermediate length of something like half an hour could be useful. The only other guides I see are either only a few minutes or are multiple hours, so there's not too much that's right in between. Secondly, I'm making this video because RPD East is apparently the most lethal map in the game, according to Nightlight stats at time of recording. I'm here to say that that really shouldn't be the case. RPD East is by far my favorite map to play on as Survivor, because it takes a lot for the killer to get even a single kill on this map. And by a lot, I mean survivors have to mess up multiple times in a row, in very obvious ways. The map is very survivor-sided in my opinion, and today I want to go over the major loops on the map, how to play every relevant part of this map briefly, and also look at some common mistakes to avoid. So I'll start with middle or main. This is the main area here, this entire region. And as with every part of the map, in my opinion, the main part is very strong. These are the escalators. This pile of stairs here and here. And these are a very strong loop in and of themselves. This is a loop in and on its own. You can just hug this, run around, hug this, run around. And you've got perfect vision of the killer, no matter where they are here. And they can't do anything other than just hold W behind you and try to catch up, because this is basically an extremely large fence. So if you've ever played Eyrie of Crows, you know how strong these are. If the killer ever double backs, you'll just gain distance. On top of that, which by itself is great, you're also guaranteed to get this god palette right here. And this is going to be a recurring theme, by the way. There are strong loops all over this map, and they're all reinforced by at least one and usually multiple god palettes. And once the killer finally catches up to you, so let's say you start, a common scenario is, let's say there's a gen here, you're working on it, see the killer coming out that way, because your camera is going like this, and then you start running. They chase you around. You're diagonal to them, so it takes them maybe a loop or two to catch up. And then let's say we keep running around, and eventually we take the flight of stairs down, and there's something like right here by this point, the point that we're here, they're right here. And now we won't have enough distance to make another loop around. So now is when we can connect this. We can go into either this office window here, or we can jump that window right there. So this is very easy to connect into either of the other strong loops that we'll be going over later on. So that's the escalators. Now let's talk about this reception area. This area, you can sort of play kind of like the other escalators, where you can run around this as many times as possible before you then go into here once they get too close. Once you're here, though, you don't want to throw this pallet. And it's not because this pallet's particularly strong, it's actually pretty weak. But the reason why you don't want to throw this pallet is because, A, once you throw it, this is really short. So if you're just standing here and the killer is standing right here, it's a mind game. You're kind of trapped here. You don't have anywhere to go. Eventually, they'll get the hit on you. The other reason why you don't want to throw this pallet is because you're going to connect into this area with all sorts of other loops run back to reception at the end of the loop. And if reception is gone, all of the other loops on this map become a lot weaker. So it's important to not throw this pallet if you can. If your killer's not respecting pallets, you get a stun, you leave, that's fine. But in general, you don't want to be like pre-dropping this pallet. And if you can greed this pallet, you should try to greed this pallet. So what you want to do instead is try to get the killer on the opposite side of you. So if you're here, you want the killer to be here, and vice versa. If killer's here, you want to be here. And then once the killer's on the opposite side of you, you want to leave this and run to this window right here. Connect it to this window right here. It's the only thing you can realistically connect it to. Or potentially that god pallet, I guess. But realistically, you want to go to this window. So that is reception. In terms of generators in this middle area, there are two generators. There's this one in front, and there's another one that can spawn at the top of those stairs right there. Sometimes you'll get both, sometimes you'll get just one. Naturally, being in the middle of the map, these are generators you and your team should be trying to work on first. Now let's move on to lower west. So as I mentioned, both from escalators and from reception, you can chain into this window in lower west. And now from here, you have two options. So you'll gain a bit of distance here. Option 1 is to run here and then turn left. Take a hard left here, hug this, run this way, out here, and take a hard left here, and run right back to this window to gain some distance again, and repeat. That's option 1. Option 2 is to turn right, run this way, cut across here, go up this spiral staircase, cut diagonally here, and then hug this tightly, looking that way, and then vault again. So that's option 2. Both of these are really, really strong, because it is not possible for the killer to really cut you off. If you are running strong loop 1, and you see the killer go that way, all you have to do is just start running strong loop 2, or you can circle around this long room here, these desks. There's no way for the killer to mind game you here. This is way too long, and you'll make it right back to where you want to be. Also, this is see-through. So, for example, let's say you're running strong loop 1 here, and you go this way, and you see that the killer's going back up those stairs. Don't go this way. You can go back, go right back, and you can camp a check spot like right here. Same thing with strong loop 2. Strong loop 2, you go this way. Sometimes some killers will, you can hold this checkpoint here. If you see them double back up those stairs, that means they're trying to go for the drop down, which takes them either through here, or there's a drop down at library, if I can see where that hole is. Yeah, right here. There's also a drop down right here at library. So if you see the killer double back up there, you can hold this checkpoint, and if you don't see them there, you can go back to strong loop 1. But if they do follow you, you have another checkpoint over here, right at the bottom of these stairs. Stand here, and you can see all of locker room, that hallway, and there. Just like that. So this is another checkpoint that you can use to see if the killer is double backing on you. So realistically, the killer can't cut you off here because checkpoints are too strong, which means they have to hold W on you. That's what makes these so strong. On top of that, if the killer gets too close to you, once again, you've got multiple god pallets. So in strong loop 1, you have a guaranteed god pallet either here or here. And then if you get the god pallet here, you're also guaranteed to get a pallet right here. Now this one's not a god pallet, but this one's a good greed pallet, because you can stop here, wait for a moment, get the killer to hesitate, and then immediately turn around and go right back to this window. It'll give you enough distance if they path around this object. So this is a good greed pallet. These two pallets are fine greed pallets too, this one less so. This one's a good greed pallet. You can greed it into this window, or you can greed it to make it to this pallet, to greed it again, to make it back to this window. And if you get this close reception pallet, again, if they're too close, let's say they didn't fall for the greed, they're right on your tail, you can go to this reception pallet instead. It'll spawn either here or here. If it spawns here, it's a little too far. I would just try to make it back to the window. If it spawns here, you can try going to this pallet instead. And then similarly, strong loop 2 also has a god pallet right in this locker room here. It'll spawn either on this side or this side. Either way, it's a god pallet. There's really no way for the killer to mind game this. They just have to break it the moment you drop it. And you can continue strong loop 2 as usual. So once again, you have strong loops with very good checkpoints and good vision of the killer, and you have multiple god pallets to back it up. And once again, this is going to be a theme throughout the map. As for generators, you can't get a generator anywhere here, but you can sometimes get a generator in locker room right here. Now that we've covered our main game plan for the west side of the map, I think it's a good time to look at some of the weaknesses, because if you've ever watched Otstarva's video on the map tier list, which admittedly is a pretty old video, or if you've ever just heard any commentary about RPD East whatsoever, you'll know that the west side is considered typically the weak side. So there's three problems that come up in this area. The first is that you can get a 3-gen. So you can get the 2 generators in main that we mentioned earlier. There's a potential generator in that locker room, and there's also potential for a generator up here in library. The library gen will spawn either here, as it has this time, here, or it'll spawn in this room right here. So those are 3 gens that are pretty close to each other. So that's a potential 3-gen. The second argument is that it's very dangerous to go down in library. So this hook right here is pretty bad for the survivors, but more importantly, this hook is really, really bad for survivors. And the reason why this hook is really, really bad for survivors is because there's no way to get up to this library other than this choke point right here. Both of the ways to get upstairs are right here. So the killer can do something like stand here, face this way, and there's really nothing the survivors can do. They will be too far from that hook to get anti-camp if they just stand in main. And this is worse than basement, because unlike basement, where if they are proxy camping basement, they can't at least, stand directly. So there's a chance for basement to spawn here as well, which is why you also don't want to go down at the bottom of the spiral stickers either. But if they're proxy camping basement, they're standing right here. Well, this isn't really a proxy because they're right above the hook, right? The hook is right below this. But they can proxy camp library. There's nothing stopping them from doing this because this is far enough from the hook. They can stand around here, and they have very clear view of anyone who tries to go for the hook. They're going to get 2 to 3 hits, basically no matter what the survivors do here, and then they can hook again at the library. So that's the second problem with this map. The third problem is that you don't have reusable resources here. I'm here to tell you that all 3 of those problems, they're pretty shaky arguments for why this map is weak, and I don't think they are problems that show up at all if survivors know what they're doing. So let's start with the 3-gen. So as I said, you can get 1 to 2 generators in main, 1 in locker, 1 in library. You'll notice that the ones on the west side are actually pretty far from the ones in main. On top of that, since you have 3 strong loops here, and you have 1, 2, there's the locker room one, and 3, the long room pallet, all 3 of these are god pallets. As long as you do these middle gens at the start of the match, you should be able to avoid the 3-gen very, very easily. You have plenty of time to do so. You have extremely good loops, and the middle loop in particular also chains to the east side, so if you want to pull the killer there, that's very, very easy to do. And the other 2 loops are very irritating for the killer because they run into 2 god pallets. And of course this one has a god pallet here as well. So you should be able to easily complete at least one of the 2 middle gens, if not both. The second problem that we discussed is going down in library. You'll notice that when I was talking about the game plan for the west side, I didn't mention going to library at all. That's because I don't think you should go there. If you are trying to break a 3-gen, sure, you will be forced to go to library and work on the generator here or there. But in general, your game plan should not involve coming to library, so you should never get down at library. With regards to strong loop number 2, we did run by this under staircase area, so you could get hooked in basement if it spawns here, where there's 50-50 chance of spawning here or below rooftop. But realistically, if you're doing strong loop 2, it's because you have a really long head start over the killer, so you shouldn't go down here. If you don't have a really long head start over the killer, you can always just do strong loop 1 instead. So you can always make a left turn here instead of a right turn, and just run the strong loop 1 instead, so that you never end up in that area. If you are working on the generator in library, and you are injured, if you're healthy, obviously it's not a problem. You'll be able to make one of the drop downs, always. If you are injured and you're working on library, you have 2 options. First option is to run here and take the drop down here. Since this is running away from the killer, you can get this pretty reliably. If you need to pre-drop this pallet to do so, feel free to do that. The other option is that you drop this pallet, and the killer's too close, and you think that they're just going to cut around this way and hit you before you get to drop down, if you try to go for this drop down. What you can do instead is you can play on the opposite side of this pallet, opposite side of this connected structure, rather, with the pallet down as the killer. And what you're looking for is to get here when the killer's around there. And then you can come over here and take the vaults on this side, or even just take the drop down there. And it's fine if you go down as you're vaulting or as you're dropping down, as long as you don't go down near this library area. Because the main thing you're trying to avoid is getting hooked right here. It's fine to get downed and get hooked in middle, because you can get unhooked from multiple areas there. But if you get hooked here, you're kind of just dead, as long as the killer knows what they're doing. But the final thing is the idea that there's nothing reusable here. And that's sort of true. These god pallets, obviously, if you throw them, and they're gone. But this window here is very reusable. You'll notice that all of our loops, basically, on the west side use this window. On top of that, as I mentioned before, in strong loop 1, if you get a pallet here, you're often going to greet it and not throw it. And if you get a pallet here, you're often going to greet it and not throw it. So those pallets you can use over and over again, as long as you just keep running by them. Because there's a good chance the killer's just going to walk around in the case of that pallet, or stand still in the case of this one. So either way, those pallets are actually reusable. Same with this reception pallet. Remember, I'm telling you not to throw this one. So the reception pallet, you're trying to use it to get max distance at this reception table so you can make this window again. So all of these are actually reusable. And at the end of the day, even if all of these god pallets are thrown, even reception pallets down, at the very least, you have as a last-ditch play, you can always vault this, and then use this window right here. Now this isn't very strong. On west side, this is a dead end, but this is a 50-50 dead end window. So what you can do, and what I suggest you do, is you run at this window, pretend to fast vault, run back, pretend to fast vault, run back, and then the third time you actually vault it. What you're trying to do is get the killer to swing at this window as you get the fast vault, and then that can let you escape and run strong loop 2. Any other outcome, basically you're going to get hit. If you vault this and they double back, you're getting hit. If you fake this and they swing, you're getting hit. I find personally that, and I do some math, and this I might talk about this in a little video, there's some math that suggests that it's probably, if you're not mixing up your options, generally the best idea is to fake this twice. If you want to extend maximum chase time, fake this twice, and on the third time, go for the running vault, hope that they swing on that third vault. And I might talk about why that's mathematically correct in a separate video. So that's an interesting topic, but that's a topic all of its own. So I hope that addresses all three of the issues that we've talked about. The 3-gen is breakable at the start of the match if you're properly focusing these gens and running the strong loops here. The worry about getting hooked in library or basement, your loop shouldn't result in you downing there most of the time, so that shouldn't be an issue either. And the reusable resources, you can reuse these pallets that spawn here, you can reuse this window, and you have that dead end window always there. And that should buy you a solid 20 to 30 seconds, even if everything is down. So, with all of that said, let's now move to the east side of the map. Once again, let's start with lower east. And the most common way you'll get into this from middle is, as we said, killer's close, you run this way, and you get the fast vault into this window. Now, as you do that, you have all sorts of options depending on what the killer does here. If they push you this way, you can run and connect this to conference room. Alternatively, there's a 50-50 chance the pallet spawns either here or here, and you can play either of these pallets as well. If the killer vaults this window, well, not vaults this window, if they push you this way instead, if they go around the hallway and push you this way, you can also vault this window here. And if you have extra distance on the killer at any point, you can also make loops around this structure here before you decide what to do. So let's say you have a lot of distance, they're on the opposite side of this, and they're pushing you this way, you run this way, you run this way, and at this point you have a choice. You can either go to the conference room, or you can go this way and vault this window. Same thing with the other way. You have all sorts of flexible options. They push you this way. Let's say you have some distance. You can go to the conference room immediately here, or you think you have enough distance, you run this way, and you connect into this window here. Or if you don't want to connect into this window here, you can also even turn around, try to go for 50-50. Maybe you'll vault this, maybe you won't. And play this window by itself. So you have all sorts of options in this office. Now, as for this dead-end 50-50 window, this room here, as you can tell, this wall is a bit longer than that dead end that we had earlier. So killers will typically be more patient here, because as a killer, it's a lot more risky to go for the swing, because this window is chainable into this window, and it takes a lot more time to catch up to the survivor. So you have to really commit to doubling back in order to catch the survivor when they vault this. What that means is killers are typically going to double back more often on this. Again, there's some math on this as well, and I'm happy to go over that in a later video. But what I'm going to suggest is that you fake this once, twice, and 3 times, and you still don't vault, and then the 4th time you get the fast vault, and then you chain it directly into this, and you're hoping that they swing and they miss. And this dead end 50-50 is strong enough, reinforced enough, that even if they don't swing, if they're hesitant at all on that double back, there's still a good chance that you just manage to make this window with the fast vault. So that covers that side of the office. If the pallet spawns here, that further reinforces it. This pallet gives you some extra greeting possibility to fast vault this, or to fast vault that. You can also toss it, and that makes this window absurdly strong on this side, because the killer, if they don't break this, will have to path all the way around this to get to you. So that is absurdly strong on this side. So they realistically, if the pallet spawns here, this is kind of a god pallet. They're going to be forced to break that. And once again, strong loops backed up by god pallets. This pallet is a lot weaker, so you'll get this pallet the other half of the time, because this is pretty small, and you don't want to be playing this pallet by itself, and you definitely don't want to throw this pallet, because it's very unsafe once it's thrown. What you want to use this pallet for is, once again, greeting. You want to get the killer on the opposite side of this pallet as you, and you want to either run this way to this 50-50 window, which we just talked about how to play, or if you're on the opposite side here, you run to this window, which is very close. Now, this window you don't really have anything to chain into. You see there's nothing right here. The closest thing would be here, which we'll talk about later. In general, there's nothing close enough here. And if the killer doesn't miss a swing or something, they're just going to cut around this way, and they're going to reach you before you reach anything. So what I suggest you do here is, if you make this play, vaulting this, you actually immediately vault right back in and play this pallet again. I think that's the way to buy the most time, is use this pallet to get to the opposite side of the table as the killer, and then commit to either this window or this window. If you play this window, it's the 50-50 that we talked about, and I suggest you vault the 4th time. If it's this one, you vault here, you vault right back immediately, kind of like you do on the construction tractors on the farm maps, if you know what those are. Before we leave this section, I also want to talk about this window a bit. You might be thinking, this window's pretty useless based on how I just described it. But actually, it's a really important window. We'll go into that later. This window's not important because it's a way to leave office. It's important as a way to get into office running from this direction. There are multiple loops that will connect back to office this way. And that's when this pallet becomes useful to give you enough distance to also make it to this dead end 50-50. So we'll talk about that a bit more later. With that, we can move on to the conference room. Conference room has a pallet either here, here, or as it spawned this time, here. The conference room pallet looks pretty simple. You got a table here, you run around it, drop it to stun them, or you can try to make max distance again. But secretly, these pallets, 2 of them are actually god pallets, and it's this one and this one. If the pallet spawns here, you just have to play it by itself, but it spawns in either of these 2 places, it's a god pallet. Since we got this one first, let's talk about this one first. So if you have any amount of distance at all on the killer, you can pre-drop this. If they don't break it, if they go around the table, hug tight, but not running into that, and hug tightly around this wall, there's no obstacle here, hug tightly, and vault this, and you'll gain distance on them. If they keep pushing you, hug tightly, run here, and this is an infinite, bloodlust notwithstanding. If they don't break this pallet. So this is functionally a god pallet. Same thing if it's the other pallet here. It's the other pallet here, you can drop it, and you run it around this direction, and you can either connect it right back to office through that window, or you can connect it back to itself by running back here. And again, each time you vault this, you are making distance on the killer. So this is a very, very secretive god pallet. This table itself is not the best way to play these pallets. If it's here, of course you have to, but if it's either of these 2, you can run around these walls instead. And if the killer knows what they're doing, they're just going to break these, because these are functionally also god pallets. So once again, we have 2 potential god pallets. this one and the one in this conference room, if they spawn in the right locations, right next to a pretty strong loop, which is office. Now, our final building, or room rather, on this lower west area that I want, lower east area that I want to talk about before we get to the rooftop, is going to be this interrogation room right here. This room is really weak. This is a dead-end 50-50 again, but this time there's nothing to connect it to, and you have a lot less vision on the killer even than in the previous ones. You can kind of stand at this door, but it's really, really hard to properly get any amount of vision on the killer here if they're going through here. So my suggestion is try to stand something like here so that they can't see you if they are coming down this hallway, so they can't tell where you are. But you can like barely see them. And then once they get around to here, you start running here, and then you just vault this immediately. No doubling back this time, because the killer has no vision of you. So they don't have a reason to double back here, because they don't know what you're doing. For all they know, you're still standing right here. So I suggest you always just vault this, and then as you do, you turn around and look. If you see the red stain at that doorway, you keep running all the way to office. You should be able to make it here. If you don't see the red stain, what that means is they double back. And you have two options. You can vault right back immediately and run back to this door and try to play this again. Or you can go to this pallet. Neither is particularly safe, so that's a judgment call up to you depending on situation. It'll change depending on the killer as well. And depending on how much time you need to buy. If you need to buy more time, you can try going back into this since it does a repeat of the situation. You can also just stand here at the window and watch for the red stain and try to medium vault it. Realistically, though, if the killers swing, they're not going to wait until they're in this room to swing. They're going to be swinging around this door. So this isn't that safe. Your hitbox will extend a very long time when doing the medium vault. So I suggest standing here, try and get vision of the killer, and going for the fast vault here. But regardless, this isn't very safe. This is sort of a last-ditch room that you run to if you have nothing else, and you're just trying to buy time. Now, as for generators on this side, you can get a generator in the office, either spawning here or here. You can get a generator in this conference room. And you can also get a generator in this interrogation room right here. So now that we've covered all of that lower east section, other than the part underneath Rooftop, let's move on to upper east. We're going to start with the sections that aren't exclusive to the east side. So that includes this room here, this hallway, this hallway, this room, this hallway, this room, and this room. So there are some filler pallets here and there. You are guaranteed to get a pallet in this room. It can either spawn on sides of this table, or it can spawn on the side of this table. And if it spawns here, it's not very strong. If it spawns here, it's actually kind of a bit playable, because these sort of chairs right here give a little bit of places for the killer to snag themselves on as they are running around this. So you can try to play this. But in general, the pallets here are pretty unsafe. Same goes for this pallet. One of the problems with these pallets in these hallways is that I think the killer can actually swing over and hit you. So you can't even hug this that tight. Even if you were to, this is not very safe. This is nowhere near long enough. You're going to get hit here if the killer knows what they're doing, especially if the pallet is dropped. So what you should do instead is try to run through these pallets. So if the pallet is here, for example, it might encourage the killer to take a long way around as you wrap around here if you're leaving escalators. Same thing here. As you run here through this pallet, might encourage the killer to take a bit of a long way around. And the real goal that you want to get to is these two rooms right here. These two rooms are both playable by themselves and also together. Start with this room here. This pallet has a very clear path for the killer to go around. So as you run here from this direction, which is the direction you generally want to be running it, the killer is going to see this, and they're going to think, okay, if the survivor drops the pallet here, we can just walk around here and then get a free hit. And if the survivor stays here, they're going to lose this mind game eventually, because they have zero vision of the killer, and this is a very short wall. So the killer is going to be inclined to run this way around this. So instead of dropping this, you can either blast right through, or you can stand here for a moment, look backwards at the killer, and then leave. Don't wait to see what their reaction is. Just go like this, stand here for a moment, and then leave. And you can go right back around to this room and do it again. Stand here for a moment, leave, or you can blast right through it as well. Don't even do the fake. Just rely on them to go around then, and then come right back to this. In addition to that, you can also go into this room here. So once again, stand here, fake them, go here, and you can run into this room instead. This room's also guaranteed to have a pallet. There's a couple different locations it can be. It can be there, it can be here, but this room's guaranteed to have a pallet. And this room is a lot like that reception pallet that we talked about earlier. If it's dropped, this is very unsafe. The killer's going to win a mind game here, they're going to get hit on you. So typically you don't want to drop it. Instead, like the reception pallet, you want to use the fact that the killer's going to hesitate at these pallets to put distance between you and them. And you want to, once again, be standing on the opposite side of this tile as the killer. If you're on the opposite side of the tile as the killer, and you are here, you can connect it back to this pallet here, and you can restart the chase all over again. If you're standing on the opposite side of this pallet and the killer is there, you can run to this window, and you can vault it, turn around midair, and run to this window here that we discussed earlier. So this is one of the ways to get back to this window that we talked about, vaulting into office. And we already discussed how to play office earlier. There are multiple gen spawns in this section of the map. You can have a generator spawn right here, or it can spawn right here. You won't get both, you'll get one or the other. You can have a generator spawn in this room. If it does, it's usually over here. And finally, you can have a generator spawn in this room as well, right about here. Now, before we get to the real cherry on top, which is the rooftop area, let's talk about the outside area. So you'll notice that I haven't talked about chaining to the outside area yet. Not from reception, not from office, not from there. And the reason why is because this outside area is a bad place to run to or to get stuck in. This area isn't a place where you want to end chases, because these pallets are both very bad, and we'll talk about them later. But this outside area is a good place to start chases. Because a generator often spawns. If it doesn't spawn here, it'll spawn here. But most of the time, it's going to spawn right here. And when you're working on this gen, you have perfect vision of that front area, and also of this balcony, and this staircase, and of the exit from office. So all you have to do is, when you're working on this gen, pan back and forth between these two areas. And the moment you see the killer come from either direction, you run the other way. If you see them coming that way, you just run this way, hold W. Don't even stop to think about running to these. And go all the way to reception. If you see the killer coming from the front gate instead, when you're working on this gen, so if you're working on this gen, you see the killer from the front, go this way. Don't think about playing this pallet, just leave, and then run into office through this window. There's another way to connect from the outside to inside using this window. So you don't want to stay out here, because these are really, really weak pallets. This one here, if you don't drop this, this is not long enough to play around. This is a bit longer than this, but either way, neither side is long enough to play around. You're going to get hit on the mind game here, realistically. The best thing you can do is, let's say the killer's... say the scenario we talked about earlier, where let's say you're being pushed in this direction. A common way is you were playing the way this earlier, and let's say you forgot that you're supposed to jump back in, or maybe this was your third vault on this window and you have nowhere else to go. You can run out here and go to this pallet and immediately pre-drop it. And The point of doing this is that if they don't break this pallet, obviously if they break this pallet, you go all the way there and make it back to reception. If they don't break this pallet and they push you around it, you can try to make it back to the office through this window again. Just like that. And that's the only realistic way to get value out of this pallet, is pre-dropping it so that you can play this as a spacing issue. Try to make sure you have enough spacing to make it back to this window, or if they break it, whichever side you're on, run upstairs, or you can run to reception. The other pallet in this area is this pallet right here. And this pallet's also really weak. If a killer knows what they're doing, they're going to push you clockwise on this. They're going to force you to run like this. And they're going to be following you, and they're going to be following you. And they won't respect this pallet at all. They'll just either swing at it or they'll walk right through it. And the problem is, they know they can do that, because even if you drop this and get a stun on them, look where you are. You're stuck here. Even if you stun them, you do not have nearly enough time to make it anywhere else other than that unsafe pallet that we talked about earlier, potentially. But even that's sketchy. You might not make it there. So all you can really hope for on this, other than like smash it or something, which can allow you to leave, for the most part, if you're at this pallet, you're just trying to waste time, or you're hoping that the killer is dumb and they push you counterclockwise instead. If they push you counterclockwise and you get the stun like this, then you can actually make it to reception. But a smart killer is just going to push you clockwise here, and you should expect to go down here if you have to play this. So as you can see, neither of these are very strong, and that's why you generally don't want to end chases here, because if you end a chase here, you're probably going to go down. You want to start chases here with the extreme vision you have here, so that you can use this very long path where they can't really cut you off in any meaningful way to make it to another tile. So finally, the rooftops. The rooftop is the real meat and potatoes of RPD East. It's what you unlock when you are on the east side of this map as opposed to the west side of this map. And the east side of this map is ridiculously strong. Or the east version of this map, rather. And it's because of Rooftop. Rooftop is insane. And any killer that spends any amount of time here is throwing away their chances at winning. So the way this loop works is you start with this window here. So a common scenario, let's say, is there will be a gen here, and you see the killer come through there, or you see the killer come up there. Let's say the killer starts there, or they can even come through there. You run down these stairs, hug this wall. There can be a hook spawn or a chest spawn here, so be aware of that. Don't stub your toe on them. Hug, run this way, up the stairs, turn the corner, and you vault this window. And midair, you should be turning this way so that you can continue. So they'll probably come down those stairs, or they'll waltz. Either way, you turn this way once again, run this way, go up these stairs, don't stub your toe like I just did, up here, and vault this window. And each time you do this, you'll lose a little bit of distance, because you do stagger, but of course the killer has to walk around a little. So each time, this window will gain you a bit of distance, but it's a bit less than distance you lose while running all the way back up. So you'll do this maybe once or twice, and then once they catch up, that's when all these pallets around here start coming into play. So let's talk about the God pallets first. There are two guaranteed God pallets. There's this one right here that's very, very obvious. You can pre-drop this, or you can wait for the killer to show up in this doorway. If they step in this door, like, at all, they're going to get stunned. They can't even try to path around here for the most part, because the pallet hitbox is really, really large. I've seen a lot of killers try to kind of wiggle around here and not get stunned. They're going to get stunned when you throw this. So you can either wait or you can go for the stun. And that's God pallet number 1. God pallet number 2, you run this way and vault this. Let's say you notice that, you're dropping down, you notice they're a bit too close and this pallet is gone. You can now run this way instead. And I'm pretty sure something like half the players who play this map don't even realize that this section exists, because I never see these pallets go down. But you can drop walk down, run this way instead of turning that way. And there will be always a God pallet here. Half the time it spawns here. If you don't see it here, you can always run here and it will be right here. Either way, this is a God pallet. This one will take up the entire hallway right here. And this one, obviously, they can't walk around either. So either way, it's a God pallet. And you can use either one. Let's say throw this one here. So you can turn right back around and go right back up to the rooftop. And you can continue the chase. So those are the two God pallets that are guaranteed to spawn. So once again, strong loop backed up by God pallets. I told you there would be a theme, and that is the theme of this map. Strong loop with God pallets. But there are also other pallets here too. There's a pallet that's guaranteed to spawn around this structure. It'll either be here or it'll be here. Either way, they're really good for, once again, getting the killer to hesitate. You don't really want to throw these. But this one you can actually throw a bit. When you throw this one, it's pretty much a God pallet because it reinforces this loop so much. Because if the killer has to walk around this structure every time, you're going to actually gain distance on this loop. So this pallet is actually kind of a God pallet. But he could spawn either here or here. And either way, it does its job well, which is forcing the killer, when it's upright, to respect it a little. And to put themselves on the opposite side of the structure as you. And when they do that, once again, you just run to the window, and you restart the chase all over again. The other pallet that can spawn will spawn either here or here. And this is another pallet that people don't seem to think about because it's not an area that you would obviously run to. But I swear, this pallet's basically always up. If you don't see the pallet here, this pallet is basically always up because your teammates just aren't going to realize it's here. This is also pretty much a God pallet. Spawns right here, and 99% of the time the killer's just going to break it. If they do try to mind game it, it's really, really hard because this is a really, really large wall, and you have vision of them. You can stand here, and you have vision of them, and they don't have vision of you. And same thing on the other side. You stand right here, and you have vision of them, but they don't have vision of you. So they can't tell which side of the pallet you're on, but you can always tell where they are. So realistically, the killer can't mind game this. They're going to be forced to break this pallet. So this is also basically a God pallet. If you get it here instead, not as strong, but again, it's kind of like the principle with this one. You're not trying to actually throw this. You're mostly trying to get the killer on the opposite side of you so that you can make it to this window. And once again, as with all the strong loops, I'll show you some checkpoints as well. Got a checkpoint right here. You check this and this. As you vault this, you run here, you turn back and you don't see the killer there, this is a pretty good time to check the checkpoint right here. Another good checkpoint to use is as you are running here, you can stand right here. And if you don't see the killer at that door, there's a good chance they're coming down that doorway. You can either sit here or you can just leave. You can just leave and run to office, most likely. And, of course, the checkpoint that started it all is the one where there might be a generator here. When you're working on this gen, this itself is also a checkpoint because you can see if they're coming from here, or coming from here, and you can act accordingly. If they do try to turn it around, let's say you're at this checkpoint and you see the killer coming down that way, you can run up and you can use this structure here to turn it around so that you are running the loop the correct way. So once again, guaranteed God pallets, chance for a God pallet here or a God pallet there, plus the fact that this is just already a strong loop where the killer realistically can't double back on you. One last thing, if your teammates have dropped down all the pallets here somehow and you still haven't won the game and you need to buy extra time, one last ditch play you can make is to run this way, and then assuming this pallet is gone, turn right here. Because this window is closer than going back to that top window again. So you can run and go to this interrogation room as well, vault this window. So that's something to keep in mind if you need to buy those extra couple seconds at the end of the match. If for whatever reason every single one of the God pallets up here has been thrown, and you really have nothing else. That is something to keep in mind. As for generators, a generator, as I said, can spawn right here, or it can spawn right here. It cannot spawn down there in that section that we talked about with the God pallet that no one seems to know about. cannot spawn down here. There's no gen spawn here. Also worth noting, there's a sort of filler palette here if you need to buy extra time. But no gen can spawn here, no gen can spawn here either. The only gens that can spawn are up there on the rooftop for that section. So, to recap. The combined middle of this map and lower west of this map have 3 strong loops. Those are the escalators, strong loop 1 going left, strong loop 2 going right. They have very little counterplay because the killer is basically forced to just hold W on you and follow you around. They can't really double back on you, they can't really cut you off. And all 3 of these loops can all be connected to each other. On top of that, there are 3 guaranteed god palettes. There's the locker room god palette, there's the long room god palette, and there's the escalator god palette. And on top of that, multiple palettes that aren't god palettes, but palettes like this one here, or the reception one here, where if the killer respects them, you can reset the chase and go right back to the strong loop 1 or 2, or potentially the escalator loop. So the killer has to worry about you greeting these palettes as well. The combined lower and upper east of this map also has 3 strong loops. There's the office, there is the rooftop, and there are these 2 combined palettes up here. This one and that one that we talked about. So this section also has 3 strong loops. And this section also has god palettes. This one's a bit more variable. You're guaranteed 2 god palettes. Those being the ones that we discussed on Rooftop. So those are this god palette and that god palette, or the other one in the other hallway. And then, depending on the odds, you can have up to 5 god palettes. So you can have this palette here, which is functionally a god palette. This palette has a 2 in 3 chance of spawning here or here, in which case it's a god palette. And that palette up there can spawn in the hallway instead of next to the fans or vents or whatever they are on the rooftop. So if it spawns in the hallway, that's also a god palette. So you can have up to 5 god palettes on this section. So once again, you also have all the greed palettes that we talked about. Palettes like these 2 palettes here on the upper east section, where if the killer respects these palettes, you get to just reset the loop on them over and over again. And you get to chain them to other structures. This palette, if the killer respects the palette, you change to this window. So, all in all, RPD East is very much a loss-loss situation for the killer. No matter where they try to chase you, pretty much, as long as survivors know what they're doing, survivors can always make it to a strong loop somewhere on the map. Survivors have multiple god palettes that assist them with that loop if they mess up. And they also have multiple palettes for which they can greed. And if the killer resets, if the killer respects the palette, they go the long way around, you'll be able to reset the loop. That's it for this video. I hope it's been helpful for learning how to play this map, and I hope that I've successfully made the case to you for why this map really should not have such a high kill rate, and why this map is really favored for survivors. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you'd like to see some more in-depth guides, or maybe see some gameplay examples on how to run this map, I'm going to leave a bunch of links in the descriptions to the description of this video, to multiple other videos showing exactly that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all at the exit gates on RPD East in our matches.